Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, a man, the son of man. And in the name of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the black man from Deep Step, Georgia, right outside of Sandersville, Georgia, who when he saw this man, he knew who he was looking at. He was looking at the Messiah, Allah, God in person. And I'm talking about the honorable Elijah Muhammad, and it takes one to know one. A God finding a God. In the name of Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the best student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I'd like to greet you with the greetings of peace of Assalamu alaikum. Well, we are having some interesting discussions on Facebook. We started off last week talking about tracking down the brown germ. So this week we're going to continue that discussion, and we're going to get into a question I put up on my page of why is the judgment in the 15,000th year and not the end of the cycle of 25,000 years. Well, for those of us who are in the Nation of Islam, we believe that Master Farad Muhammad taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and taught us that our scientists wrote history in advance. For every 25,000 years they wrote history in advance, and then another cycle, another 25,000 years. But the judgment is now in the 15,000th year of this 25,000 year cycle. So the question is, why is it now in the 15,000th year versus the 25,000 year, which will then lead into another cycle? There's some very interesting statements that were made on my Facebook page, and I didn't intercede because I wanted to read and see where the people's heads are at. The teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad goes deeper than the surface. I chose to go deeper from the surface because I needed to go deeper from the surface. Other folks may not need that. I needed that. In particular, when I feel tremendous pain or loss, I have to go back to studying that, which will help me to get my strength back so I can continue. So, I joined the Nation of Islam in 1971. I ran into the Nation of Islam in the book called The Autobiography of Malcolm X. I read this book in January of 1967. And when I first read this, the beginning of the book, when Malcolm said that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught that the white man is the devil, man, I knew I had arrived. Finally, the answer to the question I had since I was a child. Who is this devil? I want to meet him and take him out. This is when I was 6 years old, because I just hated that people did terrible things to other people. So when the Malcolm said that the white man was the devil, I said that explains everything. But then later on in the book, in the end, he got us confused, thinking that the white man was no longer the devil by him playing a game with our minds. He said in 1964 he went to Saudi Arabia, to Mecca, and he saw blonde-haired, blue-eyed Muslims. Well, he went to Saudi Arabia in 1959. He went also to Turkey. He went to Iraq. He went to Syria. He saw white Muslims in 1959 while he was being sent over there by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to make a way for him to come to Mecca. So he saw these white people, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught him and us that Turkey was a whole nation of white Muslims, and that once a person, no matter what their color, says that they are a Muslim, you are to treat him as your brother until you find out otherwise. Don't mean you close your eyes. You see if they're actually acting as your brother, but you're not supposed to call them out of their name as a Muslim until you find different. So, but I was confused. This is 1967. And it took me until 1971 to get past that, to get back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But in that period, I started studying ancient Kemet. I started studying ancient Egypt because that's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that when you want to see the black man when he was God, even in his fallen state, before he fell all the way down, go to the Nile Valley. Study what we left as a sign of our greatness in the Nile Valley. Of course, the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid, of those great signs. So I started studying that, and after a while, I studied the relationship of some of the people in the quote-unquote mythologies of the ancient Egyptians. I realized that Osiris and Set and that relationship, that love-hate relationship, was very similar to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. So I said, listen, I'm going with Osiris. I'm going with the black germ. I'm going with Elijah. His brother Set, the red one, the red germ, the Egyptians call red, but in the Nation of Islam it's called the brown, and we'll get into that in a minute. I said, I'm going with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I don't know what happened to my brother Malcolm, and we're going to get into more of that later on. This is what this is all about. So, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad left us in 75. The nation was completely destroyed by Wallace, and I was supposed to work at the farm in 1976, but when I got out of college, it was all gone. So I had to find me another life. Went away to get my master's at North A&T, my PhD at Michigan State. Came back and taught at school at North A&T State University. But as things happened in my life, something happened that shook me up, and I had to reevaluate what I was going to do with my life. I was a professor at A&T, but I got fired in 1990 because I called them out on what they were planning to do in terms of selling out North Carolina A&T to the University of North Carolina system. Eventually, that was going to eliminate A&T and merge it with the University of North Carolina in Greensboro, which used to be the Women's College in Greensboro, North Carolina. I saw them doing this, and I got in trouble fighting them, and so they fired me. I took up selling t-shirts and promoting my book. Wrote a book called Amen, The Secret Waters of the Great Pyramid in 1988. I started promoting my book and other black books, Afrocentric books, promoting Message to the Black Man, How to Eat to Live, selling those, and doing t-shirts. And I made a lot of money doing t-shirts in 1990, going into 1991, but then all of a sudden, something happened. The image of Malcolm X was given life to fight Farrakhan when at the basketball star, Michael Jordan, he had an X-cap in June 1991 press conference as Spike Lee and his Jewish financial backers promote their 1992 movie that was coming out called Malcolm X. I said, wait a minute. You gonna raise up Malcolm to fight Farrakhan because you got nobody to beat Farrakhan. I had just seen Farrakhan as he came to North Carolina A&T in 1990 when he was teaching Stop the Killing, and it was directed directly to me because I was about to kill me a Negro who was the chancellor at that time of North Carolina A&T, because I know what they was getting ready to do in terms of destroying my university. But Farrakhan said stop the killing. So I stopped that and went into another strategy to get them in trouble, but not through any physical violence. So then when they popped up this 1991, this S-cap to fight, I said, they getting ready to fight Farrakhan. Now Farrakhan going around the country talking about stop the killing, but now you gonna raise up a dead man in a movie to fight Farrakhan. I said, wait a minute. I've seen this somewhere before. I've seen this somewhere before. I've seen this story somewhere before. So I said, wait a minute. Malcolm defected. He left the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1963. But here it is 1991, and they're raising him up to fight Farrakhan. I said, wait a minute. That's 28 years. I said, now where have I seen this 28 years before? I said, I've seen this 28 years before. So, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that we, the tribe of Shabazz, says Allah, God, were the first to discover the best part of our planet to live on, the rich Nile Valley of Egypt and the present seat of the holy city Mecca, Arabia. Now some people, they got all their marbles in the holy city Mecca. That's all they want to hear about Mecca. Well, there's another part to this, and that's the Nile Valley. Well, I chose the Nile Valley. Why? Because they had these pyramids there that I ran into from studying for 3 or 4 years at the different libraries and museums in New York City while I was a student at Columbia University. And I got fascinated with the pyramids. And they said these were tombs. I said, wait a minute. Why would somebody spend 30 years to build a tomb for a dead man? Didn't make no sense to me. So I was fascinated. I studied and studied and studied about ancient Egypt to try to understand what was going on in ancient Egypt. Well, one of the major figures is a character named Osiris. He had a wife named Isis, and Horus was his son. Now a lot of people say this is the story of Jesus and Mary, and I mean, Jesus, the baby, and Mary, and fathered by God. Well, they say they come from Egypt, maybe so, but the point I was interested in is the relationship between Set, who is his brother, who killed Osiris when Osiris was 28 years old, because he wanted the throne. He tried to rape his wife, Isis. He wanted to sit on the throne to replace Osiris, but he got rid of Osiris, but then Isis had a baby after Osiris was dead, using the wisdom of Osiris to make a son who his characteristics was that of a hawk. So here you have, and then she gave her son over to Set to train. Set had killed her husband, but then she gonna take the child of her husband and let Set train him. Now, what is all that? And then Set, in training the son, her son, Heru or Horus, whose personality or type was as a hawk, a fighter, clear thinker, clear seer. Why would she give him over to him? Well, her husband was tricked by him. Now, in the book of Coming Forth by Day, which is, they call it the Book of the Dead, they talk about these two fighters. The black, Osiris black, his son Horus black, but Seth red. And it talks about these two fighters within the body. Within every person, there's these two fighters. One was black, one was red. And I said, wait a minute. That sounds like the teachings in the Nation of Islam talking about the black germ and the brown germ, but in Egypt they call it the red germ. And his name was Seth or Set, where Satan comes from, the word. So I said, wait a minute. There's something going on here. So Malcolm X should be studied to understand what happens to a man that has given himself over to his weaker part, the brown germ. We must study what we can learn about the struggle between the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X in light of primordial types, not just personalities. We get hung up in short-term personalities. You know, he did this, he said this. No, but this is a bigger lesson going on. It's a fact. We are all a part of a divine play designed to expose the brown germ and put it in check. I know most of us today don't believe there's a God who has any effect on our lives today. He created it at one time and then he died, and then there's nothing left but you and I and the white man in charge, so we got to do the best we can. Well, we in the Nation of Islam don't believe that. Our African ancestors did not believe that. They believed in a God that was a living God that sooner or later would come back and put us back in charge, even though we have been put under an open enemy in the white race that was made out of the brown germ of the black man. So we had to learn a lesson from this. So the relationship between the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X should be studied to find out what happens to a person when they succumb to the weaker part of them, or the brown germ, which happened to Malcolm. Now, this 28-year cycle that I talked about here, remember Seth killed Osiris when Osiris was 28. Then as I studied more about this cycle, there's a 28-year solar cycle in the Julian calendar. The solar cycle is a 28-year cycle of the Julian calendar with respect to the week. It occurs because leap year occur every 4 years, and there are 7 possible days to start a leap year, making a 28-year sequence. Now, why is this important? It's because when they had the Y2K, and everybody thought that all the computers would go down because they had no space for the year 2000. What some computer engineers did is simply went into the computers and turned it back 28 years to 1972. Because in 1972, the calendar would line up the way it would in 2000. So you put it back to 1972, then everything goes forward from that, even though it's 2000, but the computer will think it's 72 and it won't shut down because everything then can run on that calendar. The Julian calendar, which has this solar cycle of 28 years, and so everything's going to line up for 28 years, and then you got to go back and do it again because of it getting out of sequence, and you're not having those digits. Now the new computers, of course, got, you know, 2000, 2001, 2020, but the old ones only have 2 digits because they only thought they was going to be here. They didn't think I was going to be here past 2000. So 1999, so that 99, that was supposed to be, you know, they think that was it. But then, wow, we going to be here past 99. What we going to do? Well, you just move that back from 99, move it back to 72, and now you can act at 72 is 2000, and then you can go on with your calendar and everything stays in line. Also, in terms of this number 28, it's also a generation. It's about 28 years. Now, this is important because it seems that these so-called Jews are raising up Malcolm every 28 years to fight Farrakhan, because they're doing it now. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Now, 1963 to 1991 was 28 years. That was the first 28 that hit me. But then I said, let me go research, because I remember the Honorable Elijah Muhammad saying something about his brother, Khalat, who was going to kill him because he didn't like when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad started teaching that Master Farad Muhammad was more than a prophet, but he was in fact God in person. So he was going to kill his brother. His brother killing brother again. Well, he was not successful, but 28 years later, here comes this another brother, a spiritual brother in Malcolm, who tried to destroy the reputation of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He left the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and started spewing all type of lies on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, like Set threw excrement in the face of Horus when he was fighting with Horus. Okay, he had killed Osiris. He was raising Horus for Isis, training him, but then he was fighting against him, trying to kill him, trying to destroy him, and he threw excrement in his face. So Malcolm threw excrement in the face of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I said, this is the same, this fight. Then I said, let me just go check something. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was born in 1897. Malcolm was born in 1925. That's 28. I said, whoa, wait a minute. There's something going on here. There's a cycle going on here. Now, I said, now, I had left Wallace, and the Nation of Islam was destroyed by Wallace. Wallace, when he said in 1977, I believe, that we're not going to build a black nation, I said, I'm out of here. So anyway, when Farrakhan started reestablish the nation, I wasn't paying no attention because I've been there, done that, wasn't interested in trying to go back into that. However, when they rose up that X-Cap, I said, whoa, let me see what's going on here. Let me see what he does in 1993, which is exactly what February 21st was Savior's Day of 1993. February 21st, 1965 was when the Sunday that Malcolm was killed. But now on February 21st, 1993, I wanted to see what Mr. Farrakhan was going to do. And because that was 28 years later to the very day. So when he brought the four wives up on the platform at Savior's Day and exposed the hypocrisy and jealousy of Malcolm, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had married one of his ex-girlfriends, Evelyn, he was jealous of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that was led to his downfall. So, and then he brought forth 3 more wives of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then to talk about how the Honorable Elijah Muhammad never approached them in any ugly way, and these girls were not girls when they married to Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They were in their 20s. They were not no teenagers. Malcolm said they was teenagers. Malcolm lied. So they had to expose Malcolm as being a liar. Now, when the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan did this, bringing them up on the stage, exactly 28 years later, that's when I saluted Mr. Farrakhan and said, I'm here to serve. Because for me, you have led into my understanding. In other words, I was trying to understand this whole thing, and you doing what you did make me know that God is in charge. The same one that was in charge in ancient Egypt is in charge now. So with the ancient Egyptians, that Kemetic people were waiting on the Messiah to bring us back into power, the Messiah has showed up. Now, nobody want to give the Egyptians the credit for their polytheists and all this type of crazy stuff. Well, that's because you don't understand them, because you don't understand science, and you're looking at them, even your great black scholars are looking at them through the eyes of the white man. So, now, this is 2019. Now, this is 28 years after 1991. Another 28. So, now they're bringing up this movie, this series called Who Killed Malcolm X? 28 years after 1991, they're raising it back up again, and now Netflix is supposed to put this out in 2020, which would be 28 years after 1992, when the movie was put out. They decided promoting the movie in 1991, but the movie came out in 1992. They started to promote this Netflix series by putting out something on Fusion TV, putting out it in small areas. In other words, it's not very big market areas, to see the response of what people are going to have. The same way they did with the X-Caps and the paraphernalia. So, now, I want to see what they do in 2020, but they did enough already by, in fact, raising him up again in 28 years later after 1991. So this is why I'm doing this series on tracking the brown germ, because I have been holding this for 28 years. Because, you know, who am I? And this is, since it's not in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, directly in the teachings, I couldn't teach this in the mosques and study groups, because that's the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's the resurrection teaching, the awakening teaching, that which awoken me. Now, but I have a right to study. I have a right to have my opinion. And if it helps me, my understanding of what I have learned, it might help you. But don't worry about it. You ain't got to accept what I see. You don't have to do that. I'm not telling you that I'm a prophet. a seer. I'm just telling you what I found out that I think is correct. However, it does not have to be correct. It is my theory. It is my opinion. Okay? So don't feel obligated. It's no problem. I got the book. I will not apologize. If you want to study, you can study it. You might learn something. Then again, you might not like it. No problem. Let's go forward. So, in that movie that it came out in 1992 on Malcolm X, they did not put in Yaqub's history. That Malcolm learned from Elijah Muhammad, and he taught this very well on many occasions. One of his favorite topics was the Yaqub's history. But in that movie, they did not put that in. Why? Because they don't, the ones who's backing the movie don't want you to know the reality of the truth of Elijah Muhammad, saying that the white man is a made race. All right? Now we're learning that the Jews whom Musa went up in the mountains to teach Israel, bring them out of the caves after 2,000 years, they are in fact Satan. Because instead of using the truth to teach people, they use it, they hide the truth, put out lies to ensnare the people. So, this is from the Message to the Black Man. Mr. Yaqub was seen by 23 scientists of the black nation over 15,000 years ago. They predicted that in the year 8,400, that was in our calendar year before this world of white race, this man Yaqub would be born 20 miles from the present holy city Mecca, Arabia, and that at the time of his birth, the satisfaction and dissatisfaction of the people would be 70% satisfied, 30% dissatisfied, and that when this man is born, he will change civilization, the world, and produce a new race of people who could rule the original black nation for 6,000 years, from the 9,000th year to the 15,000th year, ending in 1914. The grafting started 6,600 years ago, and it took 600 years to make the white race. This was not in the movie. A lot of people say this is crazy stuff, Yaqub. Why do you put it in the movie, goddammit? Why you won't put it in the movie? You're trying to throw shade on the Elijah Muhammad. Why don't you make fun of the Elijah Muhammad by putting in Yaqub's history? That's what you don't want out. Okay. Now, he goes further. This is page 112, 113 of Message to the Black Man. Quote, this new idea put him to work finding the necessary converts to begin grafting his new race of people. He began by teaching Islam with promises of luxury to those who would believe and follow him. As Mr. Yaqub continued to preach for converts, he told his people that he would make the others work for them. This promise came to pass. Naturally, there are always some people around who would like to have others to do their work. These are the ones who fell for Mr. Yaqub's teaching 100%. So these are black folks who fell for the teachings, y'all. He taught Islam to black folks in Arabia who wanted to make their brother work for them or their slave. They must have thought that they were better. And you know, when you start thinking you are better, then you are becoming Iblis. So these people were already in the inclination of wanting to enslave their brother because they was better. So they fell for it 100%. Then out of those, he took 59,999 to some islands, Patmos or Pelon, in the Aegean Sea, and made a race of white devils. But they were devils before they went, taught more wickedness by him. Later on, they was taught some of the forgotten trick knowledge about Musa. Okay, now this is from Our Savior Has Arrived, page 28. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, again, writes, now, since he has discovered this essence, today we are under the God, Allah, to do away with the very essence in us so that no other man can make another people who are different from us. This will never happen again. That is why you are taught that you will be reborn again physically. This rebirth is in order to get rid of that wicked material in the very essence of the sperm of the black man. This wicked material will not be in the black man for anyone to use after the removal of the present world and people. So, What is this all about? It's about eliminating a serious problem in the very genes, the very germ, sperm of the black man. This weakness, this brown germ, this other man that's been lurking, the ones that the Egyptians said were fighting each other. The weak fighting the strong, the red fighting the black, the brown fighting the black. So this is to get rid of this whole process. Like I said, we're in a play set up by God himself to extract, expose, and then to eventually eliminate over time that problem in us, so we won't have that problem again. Now, the brown germ is recessive and a weak gene. Yaqub, this is from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Yaqub learned from studying the germ of the black man under the microscope that there were two people in him, and that one was black, the other brown. Mr. Farrakhan has stated that the white man has learned how to stimulate the brown germ within the black man, and through our weaknesses he controls us. Now this is important, because even though the white man was made out of the black man, the brown germ from which he was made is still in the black man. And the white man has learned how to stimulate the brown germ within the black man to use our weaker self against our stronger self and each other. The Kemetic people believed in two people fighting within each person. One represented as black, the other red. So this same conflict inside the black man, the Kemetic people understood as the black and the red, whereas in the Nation of Islam, it's the black and the brown. That's close enough for me. Okay, so back to that number 28. Now, you notice that Horus and Set are both upholding the king. Okay? Well, and you see Set and Horus together tying the knot between the north and the south. This is called tying the knot, because at one time Upper and Lower Egypt were divided into two kingdoms, and then 6,000 years ago they were brought together into one kingdom. We're going to talk about it a little bit later on. And this is tying the knot. Also, there's on the different walls and papyrus, there's a strange scene. Here's Horus here. Here's Set there. Here's a snake underneath the boat of Re. There's a snake hiding in the water. And here is Set is killing the snake. And Horus is cheering him on. So now Horus and Set is working together with the power of the sun to fight this hidden dragon or snake that's in the water. Now, you know, black folks, well, you know, black folks already know. Black folks are scared of snakes. You know what I mean? You say snake, black folks just start to jumping and running. White folks be looking, what type of snake? We don't care what type of snake. Snake, boom, we jumping and running and find out what it is later. Okay, now, but there's another reason. Another, and I say, you know, the snake's name was Apep, which is really the Pope. Okay, the hidden dragon, the sneaky one, the one that Elijah Muhammad said he gonna kill, the Pope. But there's another reason why we are afraid of these worms, these snakes, because actually it's a worm in the water. Larvae of a worm in the water called schistosomyces. Schistosomyces is caused by an infection of schistosome flatworms in the body. The infection occurs when people come into a contact with a type of freshwater snail that produces the worms. These worms penetrate the skin and live in the blood vessels surrounding the intestines or bladder. It is so bad there, when you go to Egypt, they tell you do not drink the water from the tap. Even though it's supposed to purify it, don't drink the water from the tap. Get you bottled water, because you don't want to get infected by this schistosome. So they get schistosomyces, because this is outside of malaria, this is the second biggest killer in the tropical areas. Outside of malaria, the schistosomyces is the worst killer, and that's that worm. So this is why, for us, this is a real snake dragon killer, hidden in the water, that if it gets in your body, it will destroy your body. And the only way you can get it out, you got to pull it out in a vein and keep pulling it out. You can't let let none of it stay in there. It may be 8 feet long, but if it stays in there, if it pops, then it's going to poison you to death. So it's a real scary, ugly thing. This schistosomiasis. So the ancient Egyptians were about science. As a matter of fact, the word kemet, the chemistry comes from the word kemet. Chemistry is what the Arabs call the science that they saw us, the blacks, using on the Nile Valley. Okay, chemistry, kemet. Now, in my first book I wrote, Amen, the Secret Waters of the Great Pyramid, I pushed that the pyramids were part of a water irrigation purification system, because they needed purified water for the 40 days of the floods that happen every year on the Nile Valley, where all the feces are washed into the river and you couldn't drink the Nile water. And so they had to invent a way of purifying water from underground and then running that water through pipes through the cities for people to drink during the period where they couldn't drink the Nile water. So they set up the first purification system. Yes, it took 30 years to build because they was busy digging down underneath here. It took 10 years to dig the underground stuff, which was a lake underground. Now, if this is the tomb, why would you be digging underground through sandstone, dry sandstone in the desert to find water? Mummies, dead people don't need no water. They also don't need no air vents. They got 4 air vents coming to the Great Pyramid. Well, it's 2 things that a dead man and a mummy that you're trying to keep from falling apart don't want. They don't want no air, and you don't want no water. But this was being built specifically to get to the water and then purify that water for the people to drink and irrigate their crops. Life-giving, not death. This was an agricultural civilization, not a culture of death. And all those people who try to tell you about what's going on in Kemet, in the pyramids, because their minds is locked on death, they can't figure this out. But I'm in agriculture. Why? Because Elijah Muhammad said that agriculture was the root of civilization. So I started studying agriculture, and indeed, and these people here were the ones who invented agriculture. They also built the pyramids, so that's why I tied everything all together. Now, in my book, I Will Not Apologize, The Resurrection of the Master Architect, I want you to look, this is Imhotep. I want you to look very carefully at this Imhotep. Here's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I want you to look very carefully at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And tell me, don't you see some similarities there? Okay. We're talking about the resurrection of the Master Architect here. Again, this is my opinion. This is my theory. You don't have to accept that. Just go and follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Holy Quran, and what he has brought to us. That's all we got to do. But I don't see us doing it hard enough and strong enough. I'm doing it harder and strong as I can because I have a better understanding, I believe, of stuff that we have not gone into. I could be wrong. I'm not going to be arrogant about it. But I have to use that what keeps me going. What keeps you going. Better use it. Now, let's go into the Bible. This is in the book, I Will Not Apologize. Now let's go to the Bible and Genesis. Adam and Eve had 2 sons, Cain and Abel. Cain slew Abel, then Adam and Eve had another son, Seth. Now Seth is the same as Seth. Now something very curious happens in the lineage of Cain and Seth. They each have a number of generations before the flood. You had Cain. Cain had Enoch. Then Enoch had Irad, Methuselah, Lamech, and Jubal. Now Seth, he had Enos, then Canaan, then Mahalalel, then Jared, then Enoch, then Methuselah, then Lamech. Well, wait a minute. I noticed that Lamech and Cain were 5. I mean, there was 5 on Lamech and 7, 5 on Lamech under Cain, 7 on Lamech under Seth. Then I started looking at some numbers from the Bible. So I said Cain to Lamech was 5 generations. Seth to Lamech was 7 generations. It says to avenge Lamech 77 times. It says the age of Lamech was 777. The heads of the beast in Revelations were 7. The horns of the beast were 10. The months of the beast's authority was 42 months. The number of the beast is 666. And the books of the Bible, there are 66 books of the Bible. Just looking at these numbers now, we're going to mix them up here in a minute. In the whole Quran, there were 7 firmaments. The cycle of the calendar was 19, and the number of surahs was 114. Kemet, the chapter of the book of coming forth by day, which they call the book of the dead. That's what the white folks call it. The Egyptians had a title on it. It was called the book of coming forth by day. It was 186 chapters. The nomes, or you would call them states, in Kemet were 42. The negative confessions were 42. These negative confessions are, like the 10 Commandments, but there was 42 in ancient Kemet. The cycle of the netters, 9. The netters are the forces of nature. The white folks call them gods. They were not gods. They were forces of nature. They were unbreakable principles that run the universe. The death of Osiris was at 28. The number of assassins who worked with Set to kill him was 42. The number of conspirators was 72. The body parts of Osiris was 14 body parts. It was cut into 14 body parts. And the maximum age of the Keftu was 56. Now the Keftu were the albinos, or the people who, they were albinos. They were white. And because they couldn't, they started breaking up when they get 56. White folks, their skin be terrible after they get in the 50s. They just killed them. Because they were, that's why they couldn't build no pyramids. They can't make it out there in that damn sun. So they were useless. Poor things. Still are. Now here we go with these numbers here, these cycles. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that we write history 25,000 years in advance. However, before 66 trillion years ago, and the blowing apart of our planet, the planet was 35,000 miles in circumference. But when moon was blown off from it, it dropped down to 25,000 miles in circumference, and our history dropped down to writing history in advance by the 24 scientists every 25,000 years. So that was a cycle of 25,000 years, but it used to be a cycle of 35,000 years, which is 5/7 again. I said, okay, here we go. Okay, 666. 6 times 6 times 6 is 2,116, times 10 is 2,160, times 7 is 15,120. All right, 6 times 6 times 6 times 216 times 14 is 3,024, times 5 is 15,120. So we got these 2 cycles here. One of them based on 2,160. 7 times that is 15,120. But another cycle of 3,024 times 5 is 15,120. So you got these 2 cycles going on. Here's some other ways to get to these same 2. 42 times 30 is 1230 times 12 is 15,120. 42 times 72 is 3,024 times 5 is 15,120. Now 77 times 28, remember 28? 77 times 28 is 2,156 times 7 is 15,092, which is exactly 28 years earlier than 15,120. Now this is going to be important as we go down the line here. So 2,160 divided by 3,024 is 5/7, the same as the 25,000 over 35,000. So what are we saying, Dr. Richley? Okay, this is what I'm saying. Hey, take it, leave it alone. Ain't got to be right. It's just my theories. What keeps me going. Because this is why I came into the nation. When Mr. Farrakhan did what he did, I saw that this was the judgment between Seth and Osiris. This was the clarification of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad away from the hypocrisy of mouth. So the judgment, if we had these 2 entities, like in the Bible it talks about, and she shall bruise it, meaning the serpent, shall bruise her heel, and she, the woman, would bruise his head, talking about the serpent. So we're talking about some cycles here. That serpent, that's in the sperm. The head is the knowledge we're going to use to beat the hell out of the snake. But the snake will get you at a weak point. So we're talking about a cycle. Now, let's say that there was a fight between two civilizations run by two brothers. And this fight continues on as we rise civilization. Somebody else is born and tears down the civilization. So then somebody else got to come and reestablish the civilization. So we have these cycles of rise and fall. But now Master Farad Muhammad is going to come at the right time with the right medicine to eliminate the problem that causes us to fall. Therefore, when he is finished with us, there will be no falling. There will be a continual rise of prosperity all the way to forever now, because the problem in the black man has been solved. And that is the problem of the brown germ. So until it's completely eliminated, we at least got to know what it is so that we do not fall victim to it the way our brother Malcolm did. So we have to thank Malcolm for what he did, because now we can see what was hid. And the Jews, because of what they continue to do, now we know you. You are Satan, to use a weaker part of self against self. You got the wisdom that you was given by Musa, but you're not using it to raise man up. You're using him to use man and play the man's weaker part against himself, and to get everybody to fight and kill one another. And if you can't win, you have decided you're going to kill everybody. If you can't win. But guess what? Master Farad Muhammad is here and he got the planes. You got nothing that can touch his planes. So you might try to blow everybody up, but you ain't gonna make it, because he got them planes, the wheels, okay? But our job is to expose you, to make you jump. Minister Louis Farrakhan said jump. He told y'all 1989 at a press conference, well, I can't stop you from killing me, jump. But my God got a plane that can wipe you out in 12 hours. This is 1989. He said jump. So we out here again saying jump. You gonna raise up our brother Malcolm again to try to put those shade on the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. You do this every 28 years. You do this to poison the next generation of our young people, to keep them away from our salvation. Well, you did it on time. You did it 28 years after 1991. Ha! I'm here to expose you. So, let's look now at these cycles I'm talking about, and then we go close out. Okay, suppose that 15,120 years ago, or minus 13,206 BC, that you had this struggle between the red and the black. So we start off at 0. We were the constellation of the zodiac of Virgo at the time in terms of precession of the equinox. So now, the cycle, the red cycle, into Leo, 2,160 years later, is minus 11,046. But guess what? The black cycle doesn't kick in until minus 10,182. So the black minus the red is 864-year difference between the advent of the red and the advent of the brown. 864 years, ain't many people gonna be around. So they're not gonna be at the same place. They're not gonna be on the same planet at the same time. I'm talking about the entities that come up in our DNA that are within the people that causes problems. So you got the red germ, it's a weak germ, and the black one is a strong one. So they don't meet in the first rung. The second rung of 2,160, 4,320 years after the beginning, that's minus 8,886 BC. Well, the next rung for the black germ is 6,048 years after the beginning of the cycle, which is minus 7,158, which is 1,728 years difference between the two. So again, they won't meet there. Okay, going on down here to this cycle here with the brown germ is minus 4,134, but the red germ is minus 4,566. The difference is 432 years. They're gonna miss each other again. Coming on down to minus 1,110 BC, when the black germ is on the 12,096 years after the beginning of the cycle, and the red germ, the difference between those two is 1,120. 1,296. Okay? Because the red germ is 2,406. So in other words, they're going to miss again by 1,296 years. Okay? They missed by 432 years. They didn't meet then. 1,728 years difference between them, the cycles, they didn't meet then. 864 years, they didn't meet then. But the next cycle of the 3,000 and the seventh cycle, so the fifth cycle of the 3,000 and the seventh cycle of the 2,160 comes out to be 15,120 years in the year 1914. We're taught that the end of the white man's rule was 1914. So these cycles then, you can see how the only way you get two of them on the planet at exactly the same time is every 15,120 years. So it is my opinion, just mine, that the reason why we're in the judgment, it was set up to have the two combatants on the planet at the same time so that we can see who go win and study them. So now we see that our brother Malcolm, representing the red, that wicked part of self, jealous, envious of his teacher, went against his teacher, throwing excrement in the face of Osiris. And now he's going to be used to help us track down the ones who are behind the scenes, who playing the black against the brown, the black against the white, who's playing everybody against one another to get us fighting and killing one another. If they can't do that, then they are working on how to eliminate. They got what's called a Samson option, where they got 400 nuclear weapons in Israel designed and ready to blow up the world, kick dust up in the air so bad that it caused a nuclear winter and all plants die and therefore the humans die. This is what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a nut who got power, but we got a better one who got more power in Master Farad Muhammad. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is jerking that chain, jerking Satan's chain, waking the people up through cyberspace on the internet by the hundreds of thousands, by the millions, and now they have to shut him down, trying to cut him off of Facebook, Netflix. Now they're going to bring him a movie on Netflix of who killed Malcolm and trying to implicate the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So we're here in the research team. We're ready to fight. We're ready to fight you, Satan. We know we can't win without Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Farad Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan. So we're not coming out here by ourselves, but we are going to be in this fight. And so I'm throwing in my little piece. You know, it keeps me going. And maybe to help you understand why we're having judgment in the 15,000 year instead of 25,000 year. Let me add one more thing, according to the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. After Master Farad Muhammad, there will be no more writing history in advance for 25,000 years. Why? Because you cannot predict God. You can predict humans. So you can study the humans as our scientists did and see the direction they're going, and then to gauge when they're going to be at a certain level of development, and then send in prophets, teachers to aid them in their development to continue on to a process that you've already predetermined and predicted. However, once God in person is here, then he will teach us how to think like our God and all of us to be creative. And now we'll be a nation of creator gods that will be producing new ideas, new concepts. That's going to transform the universe forever, and there's never going to be a falling back into a cycle. Oh yes, never falling back into a cycle that can be predicted, because we're going to be continual gods in the universe, producing a better universe for everybody. So, my brothers and sisters, leaving you on a note of something to do, because it's about what you go do today. Everybody got talk. Everybody got spots on the internet, Facebook pages, blog talks. But here at Muhammad Farms, we're actually trying to do something about it. We're trying to grow food for you, so that you will not be poisoned by the enemy, whose major weapon is food, through the genetic modifications to kill you. So we're growing good food, real food. They got fake meat. They got all type of stuff to let you know they're killing you. So we want you to support Muhammad Farms. Don't send money to me. Send it to the 3-year economic savings program. 3-year economic savings program, 4855 South Woodlawn Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60615. That's at the Palace. Why not just send it to Dr. Ridgely? What, so the IRS can come and get me? Come on, y'all. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is smarter than that. No, the money for Muhammad Farms goes to the 3 Economic Savings Program in Chicago, Illinois at the Palace. Let him come at Minister Farrakhan. Okay, he got a guard to go back him. So don't send no money to me trying to entrap me with your little dollars. Send it to the 3 Economic Savings Program, 4855 South Woodlawn Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60615. And I'll do the best I can to continue with the program. And let me add this. I got a call today and somebody said, Dr. Ridgely, we heard that you had resigned. Well, I wrote a letter of resignation in December of 2018 to Minister Farrakhan. But he has not told me he's not told me that he's accepted my resignation. So I, as a soldier, only quit when properly relieved. So I'm continuing to work and I'm looking to train someone because, you know, eventually, you know, I'm getting up in age now. It's time to train somebody. But no, I'm still here. So for all you all just think, you know, Dr. Ridgely, he didn't quit. Well, I tell you, it was rough in December of 2018. The same way it was rough with Malcolm in his fights, internal fights and external. It was rough with me. And we had just gotten delivered all the goods, and we had made the flour, and then we had all the goods for the staple goods, and people had sent money in, and then the roads blew up, and I couldn't get the stuff out. I was done. You know, I was done. Okay, that was it. However, so I wrote a letter to the minister. But then my wife, unbeknownst to me, she wrote a letter to the minister. She only showed it to me after she wrote it. And I tell you, that was the best defense that a man can have from his wife. And because she said, listen, I'll run the farm until Ridgely can get his act together. And I couldn't leave her here. She came down here. I started the farm, working down here. Then she came down here to help me. And now I'm going to leave her holding, the bag. I couldn't do that. So out of my love for her, because of her love for me, I decided to stick it out. So here I am. But in the process, I learned something. That if Malcolm had had a wife, an MGT, a true believer the way I have, then she would have reached into the fire and pulled Malcolm out when Malcolm was becoming a hypocrite. To say the way I was falling out. She reached in and pulled me out the fire, my wife. Malcolm's wife should have reached in and pulled him out, but she didn't. I don't know all the reasons why, but she did not. And so I can understand and feel sorry for my brother Malcolm because he did not have the right wife that he needed at this time for him. So it's very important that you get somebody who got your back. Get you an MGT. Get you a strong MGT. Get you a believing MGT that believe that Master Farad Muhammad is God in person. That Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the risen Christ, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the best student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he is a Messiah working for the Messiah. And so we are the fourth Messiahs, that's why we're working for Minister Farrakhan. So we have to love him the way he loves the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the way Honorable Elijah Muhammad loved Master Farad Muhammad, and kind of understand why does Master Farad Muhammad love the black man and woman in North America so we can love you the way they do. So with that, yeah, Dr. Ridgely is still here, getting ready to send out the staple goods. Once again, pray Allah, the roads don't get blown up. We did some working on it. They did some working on it. So maybe we can get it to you. Because we do know, if we don't get it to you, you don't care nothing about me and what I got to say. You just want the food. So inshallah, we'll get you the good food. All praise due to Allah. Family!